The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 213. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing woman on today. She is a fitness coach for romance writers, which I think is really cool that you can, find something and, make it work for you. So I'm really excited to have her on and share her story. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Lisa Siefert. Lisa, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Sure. Thanks. I'm doing great. I'm, in addition to being a fitness coach, I'm also a romance writer myself. And so I know the challenges, I think, for bloggers too, or anybody who works from home, of trying to stay active when you have such an open schedule. So that's what I like to do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Lisa, what's your cultural background?
Sure. So I am a Korean adoptee, and that basically means I was born in Seoul and adopted through the Holt Agency. That's an international adoption agency that existed back in the 60s and 70s. I think they're still around now. And I ended up in Kankakee, Illinois, and that's the only reason my last name is Siefert, because my dad is an American.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty cool, being adopted and, going through that whole process. I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't know if you were adopted as a baby or not, but I mean, just that whole story it sounds pretty interesting. And, I'm just glad to have you on. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
I think my favorite is, and I have so many, is the only person who can give you the security in life you want is you. So I think I see a lot of girls that are waiting, for Prince Charming, and, Sex and the City does this funny skit where they say, I've been dating forever. I'm just waiting for someone to come and save me and take care of me, and I'm tired, right? And I think, when you get into that mindset that someone is going to save you instead of yourself, you end up making yourself the victim. And, it's those same people who hope to win the lottery and think that will solve everything. And it just puts you in a position of less power and makes it seem as if you are unable to be proactive and that you cannot go ahead and make your own destiny. And I think as soon as, you start taking ownership of the fact that you can give yourself everything that you need, and it doesn't mean that you hate men, it just means that you're strong and confident enough that you don't really need someone or the lottery or something else to come along and, in essence, save you or give you all of those hopes and dreams that you want.
I love it. And, I love that quote, especially, we live in a world where we feel like we need someone else to give us, worthier approval, or we feel like we need to have a man to be happy. We've been programmed to depend happiness on others, not realizing that it's up to us to be happy. If we want to be happy, we can make that choice in an instant and just be happy. And the more we realize that, we make our own choices, it's our own responsibility to do whatever it is we want in life, then that's when the true magic happens. And that's when the right things actually start coming to your life, like attracting into your life, whether it's a man, a job, an opportunity, maybe moving to a different country. It all has to start with you. And, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think, so many people just go out there and, like you said, they just wait. They wait for the right man. They wait for the lottery, right, or the job that they want, when you just got to go out there and get it, or, learn to work on yourself, and things will start coming into place. So, Lisa, what would be, in your own words, your definition of self-confidence?
This one is very specific, I think, to maybe me and my situation. I was adopted as a baby into Kankakee, Illinois, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but it's a really small town. And it was actually, I'm not sure who puts out the list, but it was listed as the worst town in the U.S. And so there was this funny skit about a decade ago where David Letterman gave the town of Kankakee a gazebo to try to make it less terrible, right? So there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot to do. And it's a very, very homogenous white community. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for a long time, and this, I grew up in the 80s before the internet, and there weren't a lot of international magazines. And for a long time, I really just hated the way I looked, and I was ashamed of being Asian, and to the point where I just couldn't stand, seeing myself, and I really just wanted to only be white, and I'd wish for it, when you're a kid. And now as an adult, I'm really proud of who I am, how I look, and I love being unique, and I love standing out, and it took me a long time to get there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that definition. And I can relate with you because my parents moved to Canada from the Philippines. And for the longest time, I didn't want to be Asian either. Like, I wanted my name to be different. I wanted to be called like Heather, I walked by the mirror and I looked at myself and, it's like, holy shit, I'm not white. I'm Asian, right? Like, I forget that I was Asian because, we've been so programmed, like being, white or being American as like the best thing in the world, not realizing who we are is like the best thing in the world, We are proud. We should be proud of who we are, whether it's being Asian, being white, being black, whatever it is. We just go out there, do our thing, and, just be yourself, right? Be your authentic, true self. So I really love that story and definition you have behind it. And, Lisa, what was your life like, before your discovery of self-confidence?
It was pretty tough. I think, Michael Jackson is a pretty extreme example of someone who just hates their ethnicity, I think, and how they looked, and to the point where I believe that's why he did a lot of plastic surgery. And obviously I'm just guessing, but, not wanting to be who you are and being ashamed of your family and your heritage and your background is really a tragedy, because you're missing out on so many different and great things. And, as adults now, you realize that the people who really stand out are the ones who are different. And, before sort of owning myself and loving who I was and what I looked like, I would go to extremes to try to look more white, and I colored my hair to be blonde, like no one would know, right, that I'm Asian if I have blonde hair. And there's always a shock too when people meet me if you talk to me on the phone and I sound very American. My name, unlike yours, is very American, right? And so then when you meet me, they're very confused. Well, you're Lisa Siefert. You can't be Lisa Siefert. I'm looking for somebody else, right? So it was a very different life, I think, before I became comfortable with who I am, and I think that came across when I met people too. I think it makes them uncomfortable and self-conscious when you meet someone who's so unsure of themselves and uncomfortable in their own skin.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm pretty sure too, growing up in a very American town, being like probably the only Asian person in town. I'm just guessing. I'm not sure. But
that's true.
I'm sure it wasn't easy for you as well. And I mean, a lot of people go through that, right? Being ashamed of their own culture or their own ethnicity, not knowing like, you're who you are and where you came from, and your culture is so beautiful, like you don't even know what's out there. And, the more you go out and just experience it and find out more about it, you start getting proud, and, you start, accepting yourself for who you are. And, what was that point in your life when you realized, you are beautiful just the way you are, you can be yourself and, live your own purpose?
There was, and I hate to use this as an example because I would like it to be something where I just kind of discovered on my own that I'm pretty. But honestly, we didn't travel a lot. My parents were, affluent, and we didn't do trips to Europe and to Asia and to South America. We pretty much just stayed in Illinois, and we would drive to Iowa to visit my aunt, or drive to South Carolina, I think, once for vacation. So we really didn't go out a lot. And the places that we went were even more white, and to the point where I remember a vacation, I'm going on a segue now, but there was a vacation where there was a kid who didn't like the way I looked, and, was throwing rocks at me and just calling me a lot of names. And so, I was very traumatized by travel then at that point, because those hate things didn't really happen to me in my small town, although people weren't really like, oh, you're beautiful. So, when I became older, I did want to see the world, and I wanted to travel, and I worked for GE, and they have what they call the corporate audit staff. And the corporate audit staff gets to travel all over the world. And it was really great because once I started traveling internationally, I started realizing how pretty I was. And that's because everywhere I went, people were always remarking on how pretty I was and, trying to talk to me. And I had never gotten that attention really before. In my hometown, everybody wanted to date the blonde girl or the all-American girl, and I pretty much hung out with minorities, and there weren't a lot. We had that one school where we bussed in one African-American student literally from the other side of the tracks. So it was me and just all white people. And so I didn't really date in high school. And, people would say, oh, my friends would be like, oh yeah, don't you want to date Lisa? Or, how girls, your friends try to set you up. And guys would say, well, I don't know. I mean, I would never date an Asian girl, right? Like, that's just weird. And, as soon as you leave that small town and in that atmosphere, it changed overnight. And now, it wasn't, I would never date an Asian girl. It's guys that are like, oh, I really want to date an Asian girl, right? So it was a total opposite flip. And that really changed my perspective. And I thought, gosh, what am I doing wanting to, maybe even get surgery so my eyes look more white? Like, that would just be a waste and silly because, what I have right now, people are dying to have, and it's so great. So that was kind of my aha moment when I saw that the rest of the world actually valued this particular look, and it was something really unique and special.
Awesome. And I love it. And, we forget that, some of us were so stuck in these like little borders or little corners, not knowing if we just like step over the line or step over those boundaries, go out of that box. Like, there's a whole new world out there that that's waiting for you to, whether recognize or experience it. And like you said, having different perspectives about life. And that's what it's about, just going out there, exploring things, having these life experience. And along the way, you find yourself and you realize, I am beautiful, I am amazing, and I can go out there and make epic shit. So, after that whole realization, like, what's your life been like now?
It's very different. I'm super confident. I never, ever worry about the way I look or that someone's going to treat me differently because of it. I also think I've enriched my life because I'm not sure if you had this, but, when you're Asian and you so desperately want to be white, you want to have white friends. And at the same time, if there's Asian friends, you're almost embarrassed to be friends with other Asian friends. And I know that sounds weird. And so I was missing out on all these great friendships and all these great people that have really enriched my life since I've become more comfortable with myself and comfortable about how I look. And that's really opened the circle for me to be friends with other people and have different associations and no longer have that stigma. And, if I could do anything, I would love to, and I've spent time talking to other prospective adoptive parents about it and to, small children that come over from Korea as well about this. And I think that if there was ever something I could do, if it was volunteer work, it would definitely be with other Asian adoptees in the U.S. to help get them acclimated and make them more comfortable. But, now that there's the internet, maybe it's not even that big of a deal anymore.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And, I think you can still pursue that. I always say anything's possible. Like, this world is our oyster. We can do anything we can imagine. So, Lisa, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in a similar journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I think definitely it would be to stop wishing for all the things you don't have. And like I said, I spent so much time focusing on the things I didn't have. I didn't realize the gift and the natural talents and, my personality and the confidence I could have had if I had simply just been grateful for the things that I do have. And, there's that saying, make the most of what you have with the tools that you have at that time. And I think that's what people really should try to take to heart. And, you're going to waste so much time worrying about whether it's that 10 extra pounds you wish you could lose because you could be thinner, or you think, oh, everything's going to be better when I have longer hair or when I'm taller or once I have a degree. And you miss out on the journey and you miss out on so many other things, and you waste a lot of time just feeling bad focusing on what you don't have and what you hope to have in the future. So if anything, I would say really just be, not to sound cheesy, positive and grateful for the things that you do have and look at them as assets. And if you can't think of a way that they're assets now, then you're just not working hard enough. Think harder, because there's a way that everyone can start using whatever abilities that they have or whatever they've been given into a positive point in the universe.
I love it. Great advice. And I always believe, focus on what you have, right? I mean, I remember I was actually out with one of my girlfriends, and she's a photographer. And when she first started, she was telling me, I didn't even own a camera. All I had was my phone. And she just started with her phone taking pictures. And now, she's like a sought out photographer. So it's, it's not, it's either you make excuses or you make things happen. Whatever it is, it's up to you to do it, right? So she didn't focus on not having a camera. She just said, I have an iPhone. I can start with that. It's amazing what you can do. You're just starting with a phone or starting with whatever resources you have. So love the tip. And Lisa, if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
For sure. They can go to my website, which is just my name, lisasiefert.com, and you could download the 10 best fitness tools for riders, which really applies to anyone who works from home or just wants to work out at home. And that's all available for free.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Lisa, you can also head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Lisa's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really just want to thank Lisa for taking the time to share her story and journey with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it.
It was an honor to have you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Get your free audiobook by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.